Welcome back to episode 2 of Obscure EU. In this episode, I will once again be talking about an obscure piece of expanded universe information. The last episode, I covered the Hive minis with the YouTuber Quality Autism Noah. And if you haven't seen that video yet, it was a very long video and we went super in depth on some super obscure German pieces of EU. This will not be quite as long as that video, but I do plan on covering more obscure and lesser known corners of the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Today we're talking about a RPG called Hive of the Infidel, which was a part of Star Wars Gamer Magazine number 8. Now, Star Wars Gamer Magazine may be better known in some circles, but I think some of the specific articles and short stories within Gamer Magazine are somewhat forgotten. Star Wars Gamer Magazine number 8 was released on December 21st, 2001 for the subscribers, but the newsstand edition wasn't released until January 8th of 2002. Star Wars Gamer Magazine had 10 issues total, and this was number 8 of 10, so it was near the end of its run. Hive of the Infidel was written by David Noonan and Peter M. Schweighofer, with art from Derek Thompson. Star Wars Gamer Magazine was released by Wizards of the Coast, who did the RPG stuff during this run. The story is presented as a mix of short story prose and RPG stats, so it'll describe ships or locations, characters or weapons, as these Yuuzhan Vong infiltrate a ship. The prose section to this is quite good. I will read part of it. For example, there are paragraphs that are prose, so they're in-universe, like fiction, they're narrative. So, for example, this paragraph says, "You are the cream of the Yuuzhan Vong military, bred and bioengineered to be the best at what you do. Accordingly, word passed quickly through the ranks that an important commander, Malik Carr, was seeking commandos who spoke the tongue of the enemy for a special mission. Aboard Yuuzhan Vong battleship Yamka, you receive your orders. Use a captured Republic shuttle to board the refugee fighter Kalastra, hiding amongst the asteroids of the Druckenwell system. Once aboard, by any means necessary, capture a Syrian Jedi named Katayun, and return him to the Yuuzhan Vong fleet in orbit over Druckenwell. In Commander Carr's words, there is no failure, only glorious success or a glorious death. He then sends you to equip yourselves for the mission." So that is an example of like the prose paragraphs during this story. Here's another one that I'll read real quick that takes place a little later on. After countless hours moving slowly through the asteroid belt, the shuttle sensor array starts to identify the liners, yachts, and merchant vessels that make up the refugee fleet. There are a number of small craft flying among the larger starships hiding in the belt, so it's relatively easy to join their number and make your way toward your target. A burst of static comes across the communicator. "Yorva 9, this is the Kalastra. You're clear to land in Bay 1. What's your business, by the way?" So there's a ton of these paragraphs. I'll read one more just so you get a fuller idea. With a hiss, the shuttle airlock opens. Outside the shuttle, you see a woman holding a datapad, shading her eyes as she peers into the dim interior of the shuttle. Behind her stand 3 men with pistols in their holsters. So that kind of stuff is basically in first person, or maybe second person, because you're told that you are the Yuuzhan Vong. So I think the story is told via second person for Hive of the Infidel. The art here is really, really good. I'm sure I'm flashing images up on the screen of the art from this story, which I think are really good. The Yuuzhan Vong here look really distinct, scary, like nightmarish, which is really cool. And yeah, so the RPG stats are pretty cool. You also have charts here that show you different aspects of the ships, like the engines. You get to see the deck of the Kalastra ship. So you get to see some really, really cool stuff. You get to see the landing bay, the bridges, the engines. You get some really cool graphs here. And then you get the stuff that's like stats so that you could play this as an RPG adventure. But the actual story content here is pretty good. I really love the New Jedi Order era, so it's always great to get more scraps of it. And the reason I wanted to talk about this on episode 2 of Obscure EU is there's so many people who love the New Jedi Order. But I think that many of the people who love New Jedi Order are unaware of this story. This is new information from the New Jedi Order. Basically, the story is that there's a bunch of Yuzon Vong infiltrators that hunt down the Jedi named Kata-Un, he's a Syrian, Kiadi Mundi species, a part of Luke's new Jedi Order, and the Yuzon Vong hunt him through the ship Kalastra, which is a refugee ship. That's basically all there is to the story part of this story, but this is an RPG that has a surprising amount of story content. So if you've finished New Jedi Order and are thirsting for more stories of the New Jedi Order era, I personally think Hive of the Infidels is a great story that is very overlooked. I think it's super fun. You can read it at a PDF that will be linked in the description below, and it's only a couple of pages. But I think it's obscure enough that a lot of people don't know about it, and a lot of people kind of overlook it, I guess. So I wanted to talk about this on this episode. If you have any recommendations for other obscure EU I should talk about in a video, leave it in the comments below. I have some crazy plans for some obscure stuff from all corners of the expanded universe to talk about going forward in this series.